Torches lit the village paths behind Ayla as she ran. Her feet pounded against the dirt, slipping on stones, splashing through puddles. Men shouted her name, even though they did not know it. They shouted because they had seen her run, and hunted prey was always more fun. A girl went that way. Catch her! Don't let her reach the woods. Ayla's lungs burned. Her legs shook, but she did not stop. She could not stop. Every scream from the village stabbed into her chest. Her mother was still inside the house. She wanted to turn back, but if she did, she would be dragged away before she even reached the door. She reached the edge of Ravemont and pushed into the thick trees. Branches tore at her dress. Thorns scratched her arms. Darkness wrapped around her like a shroud. Behind her, heavy boots crashed through the trees. She ran into the forest. We'll find her. Ayla forced herself deeper. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. The forest floor dipped and rose, hiding roots that tried to trip her. The trees grew closer together, and the air grew colder. Even the night sounds, the owls, the crickets, fell silent. She did not dare look back. She kept running until her legs finally failed her. She tripped on a low root and fell hard, pain shooting through her knees and palms. She crawled to her feet, but her body shook too much to stand. And then she heard laughter, cruel, eager, getting closer. Ayla pushed herself toward the only place she saw ahead of her, a dark opening in the side of a rocky hill. A cave, a black mouth in the earth. She hesitated only for a second, remembering stories of this mountain. Stories whispered in fear. The hollow mountain, the place where something sleeps. But the men behind her were worse than anything inside. Ayla stumbled into the cave. The air inside was cold and heavy, like it had not moved in years. The deeper she stepped, the more the sounds of the forest faded behind her. The cave was not large at first, only a narrow tunnel that forced her to duck low. Her hands slid along the rough stone walls for balance. Her breathing echoed back at her. Her footsteps echoed too. The bandits' voices reached the entrance. She went in there. Check inside. She can't hide forever. Ayla covered her mouth with both hands to quiet her breath. She crouched behind a jagged stone and waited. Her heart hammered so loudly she feared they would hear it. One of the men stepped into the cave mouth with a torch. The orange flame lit the entrance, but did not reach far enough to show where Ayla hid dark as death in there, one man muttered. "Forget it," another answered. "Let her get eaten by whatever's inside." They laughed and walked away. Ayla stayed frozen until their voices were gone. Only then did she let herself breathe. She pressed a hand to her chest, forcing herself to calm down. Her whole body shook. Fear, shock, exhaustion, all mixing at once. She needed to go back. Her mother was still in the village. Ayla tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She fell to her knees, her palms scraping against the stone floor. As she pushed herself up again, her hand slid across something sharp. She sucked in a quick breath. Blood oozed across her skin from the cut. The drop fell onto the stone floor, and the cave changed. The ground beneath her trembled. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but then small rocks began to roll across the floor. Dust fell from the ceiling. The air grew colder. A low sound, like a growl mixed with a sigh, rose from deep inside the cave. Ayla staggered backward. A faint red glow spread across the stone, thin lines forming a pattern beneath the dust. It looked like a circle, carved long ago, now waking up. She didn't want to step closer, but her foot brushed against something solid. She turned slowly. A large stone slab stood in the middle of a wide chamber she hadn't noticed before. It must have been hidden by the dark, until the glowing runes lit it up. The slab was shaped like a coffin, covered in carved lines worn smooth by time. Her blood had fallen onto it, and the runes across the stone now glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. Once, twice. Then the crack appeared. A thin line split across the top of the slab. Ayla gasped and moved back until her back hit the cave wall. The crack widened with a deep, echoing sound. Dust rose in a thick cloud. The stone top slid to the side and fell to the ground with a heavy crash. Ayla covered her mouth. There was a body inside a man, but he was not dead. His eyes opened. They were dark red, glowing like embers, and fixed straight on her. Ayla's breath stopped. She could not look away. She could not even think. He rose slowly from the stone coffin, his movements stiff at first, then fluid. His hair was black, long and tangled from centuries of sleep. His skin was pale, almost silver in the red glow. He wore old armor layered with dust and dried cracks. A black cloak hung from his shoulders in torn pieces. His hands were long and strong, the nails sharp. He stepped out of the coffin and onto the stone floor, his bare feet silent despite his size. There was something frightening and regal in the way he moved, as if he had once commanded armies. He inhaled slowly, as if smelling the air after ages. Then he tilted his head toward Ayla. His voice came out low, rough, unused for centuries. "You," he whispered, "you broke the seal." Ayla pressed against the wall, trembling. I didn't mean to." He stepped closer. Her breath caught. His eyes narrowed, glowing brighter. "Your blood woke me." He moved fast. Too fast for her to react. One moment he was several steps away. The next, he stood right in front of her, his hand lifting her chin. Ayla flinched, but he did not hurt her. He studied her face with strange focus, like searching for something he had lost. "What is your name?" he asked. Ayla, she whispered. The man's expression changed, just a little, but enough to make her wonder what he was thinking. "Ayla," he repeated softly, as if tasting the sound. "You have freed me from centuries of silence." He leaned closer, his voice a breath on her skin. "For that, I owe you." His eyes darkened, and she felt a cold tremor run down her spine. "But I also hunger." Ayla tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, not hurting her, but stopping her easily. He lowered his head to her neck. She shut her eyes, but instead of biting, he stopped. His breath touched her skin, but he pulled back with a sharp, controlled breath. "No," he said quietly, "not you." He released her and stepped back. He looked away, as if forcing himself to resist something. Ayla slid down the wall, shaking. What are you?" she whispered. He turned his red eyes toward her. "My name," he said slowly, "is Valor Ashen." He lifted his hand, and for a moment the dim light caught the symbol carved into his armor, a black circle crossed by two lines. "The mark of the old army," he said. "I was a general once." Ayla swallowed. "A general of what?" He looked directly into her eyes. "Of the Vampire King." Ayla pressed her back against the cold cave wall, trying to steady her breath. Her hands shook so badly that she had to hide them in her lap. Valor stood several steps away now, but the memory of him leaning close to her neck still made her skin prickle with fear. He was watching her, quiet and unreadable. She cleared her throat. "You're a vampire?" "Yes," he said, "and I was sealed for a long time." "How long?" 400 years. He said it as if it were nothing, as if centuries were just seasons. Ayla lowered her eyes. She didn't know what to say. She had never seen a vampire before, only heard stories told to scare children. Stories of pale hunters who slipped into homes at night. Stories of villages left empty. Stories of monsters. And now one stood in front of her. But Valor didn't attack her. He didn't even move toward her. He looked tired, almost unsteady, as if waking after so long had drained him. He glanced down at the broken stone coffin. Your blood touched the seal. That is why it broke. Ayla looked at her cut palm. The wound still bled a little. I didn't know, she whispered. I know. His voice softened slightly. If you meant to free me, you would not look so frightened. Ayla didn't answer. Valor took a slow breath. Why were you running? Ayla's chest tightened. Bandits attacked my village. They came out of nowhere. My mother... Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. I had to leave her behind. Valor looked toward the cave entrance. They will search for you again. I know. Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them away. Valor stepped forward slowly, careful, controlled, like he didn't want to frighten her more. You cannot go back yet, he said. I have to, Ayla whispered. My mother. You would not make it to the village alive. Their camp is too close, and you are too tired to fight. Ayla's throat tightened. Then what am I supposed to do? I can't leave her. Valor watched her for a long moment. Then he did something she didn't expect. He knelt not fully, but enough to bring himself closer to her height, closer to her trembling form. You freed me, Ayla Wynn, he said. For that, I carry a debt I protect the one who breaks my seal. It is an oath older than most kingdoms. I didn't ask for it, Ayla said softly. You do not have to ask. His voice was firm, almost gentle. The oath binds us. I will help you reach your mother, but when we go with caution. Ayla studied him. He did not look like a monster in that moment. He looked like someone trying to hold on to purpose after centuries of silence. What happened to you? She asked. Valor's eyes shifted away, as if the memories were heavy. I was betrayed, by someone I trusted more than anyone. Ayla waited, but he didn't say more. Instead, he stood again, slow and steady. We cannot leave yet, he said. I need strength, and you need rest. He moved toward the shadowed part of the cave and placed a hand against the stone wall, closing his eyes. He wasn't sleeping. Ayla could tell, but he seemed to be trying to gather whatever power he still had. Ayla stayed where she was, hugging her knees. She watched him from the corner of her eye. He didn't breathe like a human. His chest barely moved. His stillness was unnatural, but not violent, more like a statue waiting for life. After some time, he spoke again. You fear me. Ayla hesitated. Yes. It is wise. He opened his eyes. But I will not harm you. Alia swallowed. You almost did. Valor didn't deny it. 400 years without blood is difficult, but I have control enough not to touch you. Why? Ayla asked quietly. Why not me? Valor's gaze softened. Not warm, but less sharp. Because you freed me without knowing who I was. That makes you innocent. And it has been a long time since I have seen innocence. Ayla's cheeks warmed slightly, but she didn't look away. Valor straightened. We will leave when the sun rises. Bandits do not search the forest in daylight. They fear being seen by the king's patrols. Ayla's eyes widened. You want to go now? With me. I told you, he said. I owe you, and an oath is not something I break. Ayla nodded slowly. She didn't know whether to feel safer or more afraid, but her mother needed her, and Vailor was the only one who could help her slip past the bandits. Isla leaned her head back against the stone wall. For the first time since the raid began, she let her eyes close. "Rest," Vailor said quietly. "I will watch." Ayla didn't answer, but a moment later sleep pulled her under Isla, woke to the sound of quiet dripping, water falling from the cave ceiling into a shallow pool. Her body was stiff from sleeping on the cold ground. Her head ached from fear and exhaustion. Light streamed faintly from the cave mouth. She sat up quickly, heart racing. Vailor stood at the entrance, where the sunlight dimly touched the stone. Not his skin, just the ground near him. He didn't step into the light. He turned when he sensed her wake. "You're alive." Ayla frowned lightly. "Of course I am." "Humans are fragile," Vailor replied. "I cannot assume." Ayla pushed herself to her feet and brushed dust from her dress. "Do you always talk like that?" He blinked. "Is it wrong?" "It's unusual," she said, but not unkindly. Vailor didn't answer. Instead, he faced the forest outside. "We must move. There is a path through the trees that leads to the outer fields of your village. If we go now, we may avoid the bandits." Ayla stepped beside him, careful not to stand too close. "Will the sun hurt you?" she asked. Vailor shook his head. "Not at dawn. The light is weak. I will stay in the shadows, and I will be fine." Ayla nodded. "Then, let's go." He didn't move right away. He looked at her hand, the one she cut. "It is still bleeding," he said. "Wrap it." Ayla glanced down. He was right. The small cut had reopened in her sleep. She tore a strip from the edge of her dress and tied it around her palm. Vailor watched, eyes narrowing. "I do not like the scent of blood near me," he said. Ayla froze slightly. "Will it make you lose control?" "No," Vailor said, "but it tests my restraint." She nodded and tied the cloth tighter until the bleeding stopped. Vailor stepped away from the sunlight, keeping to the shadows on the cave walls. "Stay close," he said, "and follow my steps, quietly." Ayla nodded. They stepped into the forest. Ayla did not remember stepping off the road. She only realized she had left it when the sound of the forest changed around her. No more distant hooves. No more wind moving easily through branches. Everything had become still, as if the trees were holding their breath. A faint ache pulled inside her chest. A memory, or maybe the echo of Vailor's presence. But she pushed it aside and kept walking. She needed to find shelter before darkness claimed the forest fully. A sudden cold drift rolled over the ground, brushing her ankles like smoke. Ayla stopped. The cold wasn't natural. It felt like a presence. Watching a crow landed on a branch above her with a rough cry. Its feathers shook once. Then it stared down at her with bright eyes that reflected the faint moonlight. For a moment, she wondered if it carried a message from Vailor. The thought made her heart twist. No, not every shadow belongs to him, she told herself. Still, she continued through the trees until she found a small ridge of stone rising from the earth. Grass had grown thick around it, and a broken stump leaned against the side like a fallen guard. It wasn't much, but it would shield her from wind. Ayla laid her pack down and sat, pulling her cloak tight. The air tasted of damp leaves and something older, like forgotten ruins waiting nearby. When she closed her eyes, exhaustion dragged at her bones, but the forest didn't want her to sleep. A sharp crack split the silence. Ayla's eyes flew open. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. She rose to her feet and pressed her back to the stone ridge. Her heartbeat pounded hard enough to drown out everything else. A figure stepped between the trees. Tall, broad-shouldered, Not human. It was a vampire, but not Valor. This one's armor was dark and ridged like the shell of some ancient beast. His eyes burned with a faint red glow, colder, more distant than Valor's silver gaze. He stopped a few paces away, head lifting slightly as if testing the air around her. "You are far from safety," he said, voice deep and dry as dust on stone. Ayla swallowed. "Who are you?" "My name is Cavern Knox." He tilted his head. "I serve the vampire court." A chill shot through her. "Why are you here?" she asked. "To find you." Every muscle in her body tightened. Cavern glanced at the ground near her feet, where faint traces of Valor's magic still clung like thin frost. He knelt, touched the earth, and exhaled. "So it is true," he murmured. "Valor Ashen has stepped from shadow. For a mortal girl." Ayla felt her pulse throb painfully. Cavern stood again, taller now, more threatening. "You will come with me. The court wishes to question you." "No," Ayla said, stepping back. "You misunderstand." Cavern's tone did not change. "There is no choice." A cold shock ran through her, but before she could react, something moved above them. A blur, a strike of wind, a shadow dropping from the branches like a falling star. Cavern spun, but too late. A figure slammed into him, forcing him back several steps across the leaves. Ayla froze, eyes widening as moonlight broke through the clouds. Valor stood between them, his coat whipped behind him, silver eyes burning hotter than she had ever seen. He looked dangerous in a way that made the night itself feel small. "Cavern," Valor said, voice low, sharp. "You should not have come here." Cavern straightened. "I follow the orders of the court, and I do not answer to them any more." "That is clear," Cavern replied, "especially since you have chosen to guard her." Valor's jaw tightened. One step forward, and the leaves trembled. Ayla felt the weight of the moment press down on her chest. Two vampires, both powerful, both ancient, standing in the forest because of her Cavern's gaze, flicked to her again, then back to Valor. "You have broken more than one law tonight." "I will break every one of them," Valor said softly, "if they threaten her." The forest held its breath. Cavern's expression did not change, but his stance did, shifting lower, ready to strike. "In that case," he said, "I will return with a message." He stepped back into the shadows. "The court will summon you, Valor Ashen, and if you refuse, they will hunt you." Valor didn't move, not until Cavern vanished completely into the trees. Then he turned. His eyes settled on Ayla. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her hands trembled. "Why did he come for me?" "Because the court fears what they do not understand," Valor answered quietly, "and they have never understood you." A soft wind moved through the leaves again. This time, it felt warm. Ayla swallowed, trying to steady her voice. "Valor, why did you come back?" He stepped closer, slowly, as if giving her time to refuse him. "I told you," he said, "I would return when the danger reached you." Ayla's breath caught, and it has. He stopped just in front of her, close enough that she could feel the chill of his presence, mixed with something gentler beneath it. "You are no longer safe on the roads," he said. "You will travel with me." Ayla hesitated, not because she feared him, but because the truth in his eyes was hard to face. "If I go with you," she whispered, "the court will see it as your rebellion." "They already do." "Then why risk it?" His voice softened in a way that made her heart ache. "Because losing you would be worse." Ayla's chest tightened, her breath wavering. The night felt quieter now, as if even the forest leaned closer to hear what came next. Valor looked down at her, silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Stay with me," he said. "Just through the forest. I will take you somewhere safe." She didn't trust the world. She didn't trust fate, but she trusted him. Ayla nodded. Valor's shoulders seemed to loosen, just barely. "Come," he said. And the forest opened before them, ready to lead them deeper into the night. The forest path Valor chose wasn't truly a path at all. It wound between roots, dipped into uneven ground, and bent around fallen logs, as if it hid itself from ordinary travelers. Ayla walked close behind him, her steps quiet, her breath steadying with each moment that passed. The moonlight faded as the trees thickened, their branches forming an arch of shadow overhead. Only the pale shimmer around Valor kept her from losing her way. She watched him carefully, the way his movements were silent yet full of purpose, the way he never glanced back, but somehow always knew she was there. Finally, she whispered, "Were you watching me the whole time?" "No," he said, "but I stayed close." "Why?" Valor didn't answer at once. His gaze hovered on the dark ahead, sharp and alert. "Because I knew the court would send scouts," he said quietly, "and Kavran is never far from the scent of trouble." Ayla hugged her cloak tighter. "How did he find me so fast?" "He followed the trail of magic on the road. You walked through it when I arrived." She frowned. "Magic?" Valor slowed, then turned to her. His hand lifted slightly, not touching her, but close enough that she felt the faint coolness ripple through the air. "When I reached you earlier," he said, "my presence leaves a mark. Vampires of the court can trace such marks, if they are skilled enough." "And Kavran is skilled," Ayla murmured. A small, sharp smile touched Valor's lips. "He is skilled, but not skilled enough to take you from me." A heat moved through her chest. Fear, yes, but something else too. Trust. They walked on until the forest opened into a small clearing surrounded by tall stone pillars. They were cracked and covered in moss, their shapes half buried by time. Ayla's breath caught. "What is this place?" "An old outpost," Valor said. "Vampires built these long before your kingdom existed. They were used for travel, for shelter, and for secrets. And now? Now they are forgotten." He stepped forward, brushing dust from one of the stones, which makes them useful. Ayla approached the nearest pillar, running her fingers across the rough surface. Tiny carvings covered the stone circles. Lines, a sun broken in half. What do these mean? "Blood paths," Valor answered. "Marks that guided us through the wildlands in ancient times. Only a few of us can still read them." Ayla looked up at him. "You can?" He nodded once. "I remember everything I was taught." She felt a strange mix of awe and unease. Valor had lived longer than any human could even imagine. He had walked through times that existed only in dusty stories and fading songs. And yet, here he was, guiding her through the dark. "Sit," he said softly. "You need rest." She didn't argue. The stone beside her felt cold, but the air around her felt warmer, now safer. Valor stayed standing, watching the tree line. "You won't rest?" she asked. "Not while the court hunts." Ayla pulled her knees to her chest. "Because of me?" Valor turned his head, and the silver in his eyes flickered like moonlight on water. "Because of what you may be," he said. Her heart thudded. What does that mean? For the first time, he stepped closer instead of keeping distance. "You told me once," he said quietly, "that you've always felt different." Ayla nodded slowly. She had said that. She had never understood why she felt things before they happened, why she sensed storms hours before the clouds gathered, Why dreams clung to her with warnings she didn't understand. "My mother tried to hide it," she whispered. "She said it wasn't something I should talk about." "Your mother was right to hide it," Valor murmured, "for your gift is rare." Ayla's breath stilled. Gift. No one had ever called it that. Most treated it like a strange habit, an odd instinct, something better ignored. What kind of gift? Valor lowered himself to sit across from her, the distance between them small now. Small enough that she could see every detail of his face. You feel what others cannot. You sense the turning of danger, the shifting of fate. Your kind once had a name long ago. What name? He hesitated, as if choosing the simplest words. Seers. Ayla's chest tightened. That's just a story. Stories begin somewhere. She shook her head, trying to steady her voice. I can't see the future. No, Valor said softly. You do not see. You sense. That is the older form of the gift. The truer one. The court fears such gifts because they cannot control them. Ayla stared at the ground. Pieces of her life shifted in her mind. Memories, warnings, dreams. Strange moments where she felt something changing. Days before it happened all this time. She thought she was simply odd. But Valor looked at her with a calm certainty that made denial impossible. Why would the court fear me? She whispered. Because a true seer can alter the course of kings and nightborn alike, Valor said. And because prophecies tied to your bloodline have begun to stir again. My bloodline? Your ancestor, Norrell Wynn, was the last mortal seer recorded. His visions shaped the first peace between vampires and men. Ayla shook her head slowly. I don't understand any of this. You will, Valor said gently, but not tonight. He stood again, returning to the edge of the clearing. Ayla looked up at him. You're staying awake to protect me? Yes. Even if the court comes? His voice was simple, clear, certain. I will not let them touch you. Ayla stared at him, her heart trembling with something she didn't yet want to name. She lowered her head against her cloak, letting exhaustion pull at her again. But before sleep claimed her, she whispered one last question. Valor, why do you care this much? A long pause followed, the kind of pause that held truth inside it. When he finally answered, his voice was quiet enough that only she could hear it. Because your fate is tied to mine, he said, and I cannot walk away from that. Ayla's eyes drifted shut. For the first time since leaving her village, she fell asleep without fear, and Valor kept watch as the night deepened around them. A faint, distant sound woke Ayla, long before the first sunlight touched the forest. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't footsteps. It was something softer, like a hum pressed deep inside stone, moving through the earth and rising into her bones. Ayla sat up slowly, her breath unsteady. Valor turned at once. You heard something. It wasn't a question. She nodded. Yes, a sound. From the stones. Valor's expression shifted, eyes narrowing slightly in thought. He moved closer, kneeling beside the cracked pillar where she had slept. These stones do not call to ordinary travelers. I'm not ordinary, am I? She whispered. No, he said, calm but certain. You never were. A cold shiver moved across her skin. The hum grew stronger, not loud, but persistent. It felt like something waiting inside the ruin. Ayla placed her hand against the pillar. The moment her fingers brushed the stone, a flash of light burst behind her eyes. Not real light, memory light, vision light. She saw hands she didn't know, shadows moving across an old map, a candle flickering beside a man, with the same dark hair she had Norrell win. He whispered a line she couldn't fully hear. "When the moon breaks, follow the path." The words cut off. Ayla gasped and pulled her hand away. The hum faded. Her heartbeat did not. Vailor steadied her arm before she could fall back. "You saw something." Ayla swallowed hard. "Yes." "What did you see?" She tried to piece the fragments together. "It was my ancestor. I've seen drawings of him, but this felt real. He was saying something about a path when the moon breaks." Vailor looked at the sky, then back at her. "That is a warning." "Of what?" "A place the court does not want found." Ayla's breath trembled. "Why? What's there?" "A truth," Vailor answered. "One that could change everything." Ayla stood, though her legs felt weak. She looked at the circle of stone pillars again. The moss, the cracks, the old markings. Everything felt different now. Alive. Awake. "So, what do we do?" she whispered. Vailor's jaw clenched slightly, a sign she recognized. He was thinking, calculating, deciding. "We follow your vision," he said at last. "But we must move quickly. Cavern will not return alone." Ayla nodded and gathered her pack. "Where do we go first?" Vailor pointed toward the deeper part of the forest, a darker stretch where the air seemed heavier. "Toward the hill of Starfall. If your ancestor left a message, it will be there." He stepped aside, letting her walk beside him instead of behind. "Stay close," he said quietly. "I will." And so they left the ruins, walking deeper into shadows that seemed older than the kingdom itself. As they traveled, the forest changed. The air grew cooler. The branches above twisted into strange shapes. Strips of pale mist hugged the ground, refusing to move even when the wind touched them. Ayla felt watched, not by something hostile, but by something ancient. "Why does the forest feel like this?" she asked. "It is a borderland," Vailor said, "between your world and the remnants of mine." "You mean vampire lands?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "Older, much older." Ayla's stomach tightened. "Do vampires fear this place?" "Fear?" He gave a small, humorless sound. "We respect it, and we do not linger in it unless we must." Ayla glanced around, suddenly aware of how silent everything had become. Even birds refused to enter this part of the woods. "Then why bring me here?" "Because the court would not dare step foot in these woods," Vailor answered. "It gives us time." Ayla nodded, though her heart beat fast. She looked at him again. The tense set of his shoulders, the careful way he listened to every shift in the leaves he was protecting her, always. But she also sensed something else in him. Not fear, but caution. Even Vailor wasn't comfortable here. Ayla slowed. "Are we in danger?" "There is danger everywhere now." Then softer, "But I will not let it reach you." She believed him. Still. She could not shake the strange feeling crawling through the air. As they walked, her fingers brushed a low branch. The bark beneath her hand felt cold, almost too cold, like frozen stone. She frowned and stepped back. Vailor noticed at once. "What is it?" "This tree. It feels wrong." He touched it too, but he didn't react with surprise. "This is what remains when old magic sleeps for too long," he said quietly. "It changes the earth. It changes everything." "Is the magic dangerous?" "For me?" His voice was steady. "No." He looked at her. "For you, I do not know." Ayla's breath caught. Before she could speak, a faint whisper drifted through the trees. It wasn't wind. A wind sound fades. This whisper didn't. Vailor stiffened. "Stay behind me." Ayla obeyed at once. The whisper came again, thin, stretched, like a voice dragged across a great distance. Ayla didn't understand the words, but she felt them, like a thought pressing against the edge of her mind. Valor's eyes darkened. "Do not listen to it," he said sharply. "I'm not trying to," Ayla whispered, gripping her cloak. "It's just... there." He stepped closer to her. Too close. Close enough that she felt the cold of his coat brush her arm. "I said do not listen." Ayla nodded quickly. The whisper passed. The air settled, and Vylor didn't step away. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he spoke, voice low, almost a whisper himself. "You cannot let this forest into your mind. It will try. It always tries." Ayla swallowed. "What does it want?" Vylor looked toward the deeper shadows. "Those who walk through here hear echoes from what came before," he said. "Memories pressed into the ground, souls that never left." Ayla froze. "Are there ghosts here?" "No, not ghosts." He paused. "Something older." She didn't ask again. Vylor finally stepped back and motioned forward. "Come. The hill is close." Ayla followed him, though every part of the forest felt heavier now, like a door half open to a world she was not meant to see. After another hour, the trees thinned, giving way to a clearing shaped like a bowl carved into the earth. At the center stood a lonely hill, steep, narrow, and crowned with a ring of stone that glowed faintly under the fading moon. Ayla stopped, breath catching in her throat. "Valor, what is that?" He looked at the hill with a rare, quiet reverence. "That," he said, "is where your ancestor left his warnings." Ayla felt something pulse inside her chest. Not fear, recognition. As if the hill had been waiting for her, Ayla stepped forward slowly, unable to take her eyes off the hill. It rose from the clearing like a single tooth of the earth, its sides smooth with age, its top crowned by stone pillars, much like the ruins she had slept beside. Only these were far more intact. Some of them even glowed faintly, as though the moonlight had sunk inside the rock and was trying to escape. Vylor watched her carefully. "You feel something," he said. Ayla didn't look away. "I don't know what it is, but yes, it's familiar." He nodded once. "Your blood remembers." She swallowed. The words felt too large, too heavy for her, but they rang true in a way she couldn't deny. Together they walked toward the hill. A faint path wound upward between patches of brittle grass, glowing lightly under the morning sky. Ayla reached out her hand, not touching the path, but hovering just above it. "It's warm," she whispered. "The stones react to you," Valor said, "to your lineage." Ayla traced the path with her eyes. "It's like it's showing me where to step. That is the purpose of a seer's mark." Ayla's heart thumped once, hard. "Valor," she said quietly, "do you think this hill was meant for me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped to her side and gestured ahead. "Walk," he said. "I will stay with you." They climbed. The air grew thinner, cooler, yet Ayla felt a steady warmth beneath her feet, pulsing like a heartbeat hidden inside the earth. At the top, the ring of stone pillars stood tall and silent. Some were cracked. Others had pieces missing. But one pillar, the tallest, stood untouched, smooth as river stone, and marked with gentle carvings that spiraled from bottom to top. Ayla felt the pull toward that pillar at once. Valor stayed behind her, close enough to reach her if she stumbled. "Touch it," he said softly. Ayla raised her hand. Her fingertips brushed the stone, and the world shifted. A vision unfolds darkness, not frightening, familiar. Then a man's voice, firm and calm. If my blood still walks this land, then this message will find them. A flicker of torchlight revealed a man with Isla's eyes and her dark hair, tied back with a thin leather band. Noral Wynn. He stood beside the very pillar she touched now, his hands pressed over the carvings, as if sealing something inside. "The court rises again," he whispered. "They twist the night to their desire. If they gain the lost scrolls, all peace will fall." Ayla's breath hitched. Noral turned, as though sensing her there, even across time. "To the one who carries my blood, you must find the place where the moon breaks." The words struck her like thunder. The vision flickered, then faded into black. Ayla gasped and stumbled backward. Valor caught her before she could fall. "What did you see?" His voice was steady, but urgent. She looked up at him, breath shaking. "My ancestor. He warned me. Warned us." She pressed a hand to her chest. "He said the court is searching for something. Something called the Lost Scrolls." Valor's expression hardened at once. "That is no simple prophecy," he said. "Those scrolls hold secrets from the oldest days of night. If the court finds them, the mortal kingdoms will not survive." Ayla felt her pulse race. "Then, we have to find them first." Valor stared at her for a long moment. His eyes were unreadable. "It will be dangerous. I know. You may be hunted. I already am. You will be leaving your old life behind." Ayla hesitated, not because she doubted her choice, but because the weight of it settled heavily on her shoulders. "My life changed the moment Cavern stepped out of those trees," she whispered. "I can't turn back now." Valor's gaze softened, not with pity, with respect. "For a mortal girl," he said quietly, "you have more courage than many warriors I have known." Ayla's throat tightened. She wasn't sure what to say, so she said the truth. "And I'm not alone." Valor held her gaze. "No," he said, "you are not." But the moment shattered. A sharp crack echoed through the clearing. It wasn't a branch. It wasn't a stone. It was a warning. Valor spun, placing himself in front of Ayla instantly. Another crack followed. Then, a low growl. Not human. Not vampire. Something else. A shadow moved between the trees at the base of the hill. Large, as heavy, dragging something across the ground as it approached. Ayla's breath caught. "What is that?" Valor's voice dropped into a tone she had never heard from him before. Quiet, cold, dangerous. "An old creature," he said, "awoken by the power in this place." The growl grew louder. A second shadow joined the first. Ayla stepped back until her shoulders brushed the tall stone pillar. Valor unsheathed the blade at his side. A long, dark weapon that shimmered as though made from night itself. "Stay behind me," he said. "I will," she whispered. The forest grew silent again. Too silent. Then, the first creature stepped into the clearing. Ayla's blood ran cold. It was shaped like a wolf, but twice the size. Its fur was dark and tangled with roots. Its eyes glowed faintly green, as if lit by some ancient magic buried deep in the earth. Valor's stance tightened. "Forest shades," he said, "born from old magic. They do not belong in your world or mine." Ayla's breath trembled. "Can you fight them?" "I can try." The second shade appeared beside the first, this one even larger, its teeth long and jagged like broken stone. Valor exhaled once. "I will hold them off. When I say run, you run." Ayla's heart hammered. "No, I won't leave you." "Ayla," I said no. He looked at her, truly looked, and something fierce flickered in his eyes. Then the shades lowered their bodies to the ground. Ready to strike, Valor lifted his blade. The air tightened. The creatures lunged. The first shade moved like a storm, fast, heavy, its claws tearing deep grooves into the earth. The second followed a heartbeat later, jaws wide enough to crush stone. Valor didn't retreat. He stepped forward. His blade cut through the air in a single, perfect arc. A sound like cracking ice exploded as steel met the first creature's skull, splitting through the glowing green light within. The shade staggered but didn't fall. Ayla gasped. "Valor! Stay back!" he snapped, but his voice held no anger, only fear for her. The second shade lunged at his side. Valor twisted, bringing the blade across its snout, carving a deep, dark wound that spilled smoky black mist instead of blood. The creature recoiled, shaking its head violently, but the first shade recovered. It leapt again, higher this time, aiming straight for Valor's throat. Ayla felt something tear inside her chest. Move. She didn't think, she didn't plan. She simply acted. A sharp pulse ran through her fingertips, like the hum she felt in the stone earlier. And before she understood what she was doing, Ayla threw herself sideways, grabbing a fallen branch and hurling it at the creature with all her strength. The branch struck the shade directly in the eye. It howled, a long, jagged sound that rattled the air, and crashed into the ground, clawing wildly at its face. Valor's head snapped toward her, eyes wide. "Ayla!" "I'm fine," she yelled back, breath ragged. "Just fight." The second shade charged again. This time Valor met it head on. He ducked beneath its teeth, drove his blade upward, and buried it deep beneath the creature's jaw. Black mist exploded from the wound as the shade collapsed, dissolving into the earth like melting snow. But Valor didn't stop moving. The first shade recovered again, rising with a furious, broken snarl. It didn't attack Valor. It turned toward Ayla. Her blood froze. Valor moved faster than she had ever seen. A flash of black coat, silver eyes burning like lightning, blade glinting in the rising dawn. He reached the creature a moment before it reached her. His hand gripped the shade's throat. The creature writhed violently, claws scraping against his arm, but Valor didn't flinch. His voice dropped into a low, ancient command, a word in a language Ayla had never heard. At once, the creature stopped moving. Its glowing eyes dimmed. Its body sagged. Valor tore his blade free of the second shade's corpse and drove it through the first shade's skull. The forest trembled with the force of the strike. The shade collapsed at last, turning to dust at Ayla's feet. Silence poured over the clearing, heavy and complete. Ayla's breath shook, not from fear of the creatures, but from what almost happened, from how close the shade had been, from how Valor had moved like a shield between her and death. He turned toward her slowly, chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. "Ayla," he said quietly, "you should not have stepped toward them." "I didn't," she whispered. "They stepped toward me." She tried to smile, but her hands trembled and Valor saw it. He crossed the distance between them in 2 long strides. "Let me see." Ayla frowned. "See what?" He gently lifted her hand. The skin along her palm and fingertips glowed faintly. A soft white light like moonlight caught inside her flesh. Ayla stared, stunned. "Is this?" Valor nodded. "The echo of the hill's power. You touched the prophecy stone. It lingers in your blood." "It helped me," she whispered. "It made me move." "It saved you," he said, "but it is dangerous to use without control. The forest will sense it." Ayla swallowed hard. "So what do we do?" "We leave," Valor said at once. "The shades will draw more creatures. This place is waking, and it does not wake gently. She nodded, then hesitated. But the vision... We have what we need from the hill. The path to the broken moon. He glanced toward the sky. The forest grew quieter as Ayla and Valor walked north. The storm of shades behind them faded into the distance, leaving only the sound of soft wind through the trees. Ayla felt each step more heavily than the last. She knew something was changing. In her, in the world, in the future waiting for them. Ahead, the trees opened into a wide clearing. A smooth black stone stood in the center, shaped like a half-moon. It pulsed with a slow white glow, rising brighter as Ayla approached. Valor stopped beside her. "This is it," he said. "The resting place of your ancestors' secret." Ayla stepped closer to the stone. Her palm tingled again with the faint white light. She raised her hand and placed it on the cold surface. The world rushed inward, her vision filled with white mist. She stood on a cracked plain beneath the real broken moon, its pale shards hanging in the night, like pieces of a shattered mirror. A voice rose behind her, gentle, warm, familiar. "Ayla." She turned. It was Norrell Wynn, her ancestor, standing in a simple gray cloak. His face was calm, his eyes steady. "You carry the strength I once hid," he said. "But this power was never meant to save me. It was meant to protect the one who would rise after all others fell." Ayla's throat tightened. Protect from what? "From the darkness that claims what it doesn't understand," Norrell said. "From the court. From fear. From the hunger for control." She realized he wasn't speaking about the creatures, or magic, or prophecy. He was speaking about people. "And Valor?" she asked quietly. "Where does he stand?" Norrell smiled. "He stands where you choose to let him. Power listens to the heart that guides it." The vision faded like smoke drifting apart. Ayla blinked as the real world slid back around her. The stone dimmed, the light fading from her hand. Valor stepped forward. "What did you see?" "The truth," she whispered. "I was never meant to destroy anything. I was meant to stop a war." A long breath left his chest, part relief, part wonder. "What will you do now?" he asked. Ayla looked up at him. Then she said the words she had been holding since the hill, since the shades, since the moment she first saw him waiting in the night. "I want you to stand with me," she said, "not as a guard, not as a shadow, as a partner." Valor's posture stiffened, not in alarm, but in something like surprise. Slowly, very slowly, his expression softened into something warmer than she had seen from him yet. "Ayla, I would stand with you, even if the world turned against us." She reached out, and he took her hand, carefully, as if he were afraid she might disappear. The forest wind swept around them, gentle now, carrying no threats, no shadows. Ayla turned once more toward the black stone. The glow inside it flickered twice, then went out. The prophecy was finished. The secrets were no longer secrets. The future would write itself from this moment on, not in the hands of a king or a court, but in the steps of a girl who found her strength, and a vampire who chose his own path. Ayla squeezed Valor's hand. "Let's go home," she said. He nodded, and the two of them walked toward the first light of morning, side by side, leaving the broken moonstone behind them, and stepping into a new world they would shape together.